Chapter 41. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There were 7 styrofoam coolers lined up in the Chu family's yard. Each cooler contained a jumbo plum ginseng, easily over 80 centimeters long. No bidding needed for these ginseng kings. Chu Yang told Bai Pengfei he could pick any 3 he wanted at the same price, and the 2 businessmen didn't disappoint, immediately offering 1,800 yuan per caddy, approximately 1.1 pounds. That'd be over 20,000 yuan per caddy dry, but Chu Yang was still pretty happy. Bai, you really came prepared. All these coolers and ice, ready to go. Hearing Zheng's praise, Bai Pengfei couldn't help but grin. Zheng, I can't touch you when it comes to business, but I know a thing or two about hauling seafood. Modest, Bai, modest, Zheng chuckled. Bai, you go first. Which 3 do you want? Chu Yang pointed at the coolers, rubbing his hands with excitement. Bai Pengfei paced back and forth, examining each one. You'd think he was picking his wife on their wedding night. Man, this is tough. How about you take them all, Zheng? I'll treat you to a week of fun at Hongleman sometime. Hongleman's got nothing on what I can offer. If you're willing to part with them, I'll hook you up with Jianshang Renjian in Dongguan. Zheng winked, obviously a man of similar tastes. My buddy manages the place. He says they just got a fresh shipment straight from the north. I can get you first crack at it. Bai Pengfei was instantly tempted. He really wanted to win glory for the country, a euphemism for seeking pleasure, but looking at these treasures in front of him, he forced himself to resist, finally picking 3 big, plump ones. Bai Pengfei was ecstatic. Zheng pointed to the remaining 2 coolers. Chu, the last 2 are mine, right? Where did the other 2 go? Chu Yang was definitely keeping 2 wild plum ginseng for himself. They're great for virility and overall health, even if he didn't need them now, who knew what the future held. With the plum ginseng sorted, they started weighing everything. This stuff was valuable, so they used both Zheng and Bai Pengfei's scales first, then Chu Yang's. Once everyone agreed on the weights, they sealed the coolers, using Bai Pengfei's, which were packed with ice for maximum preservation. After recording the weights, they started calculating the prices. Clear, 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 cleared. 450 times 2.7, equals 1,215. Chu Yang's fingers flew across the calculator. Zheng's total, small sea cucumbers, under 20 centimeters, 2.7 caddies for 1,215 yuan, medium, 20 to 40 centimeters, 15.3 caddies for 9,945 yuan, large, 60 to 80 centimeters, 41 caddies for 53,300 yuan, jumbo, over 80 centimeters, 23.5 caddies for 42,300 yuan. Grand total, 106,760 yuan. Bai Pengfei's total, large sea cucumbers, 40 to 60 centimeters, 39.5 caddies for 32,390 yuan, jumbo, over 80 centimeters, 37.6 caddies for 67,680 yuan. Grand total, 100,070 yuan, the combined total, 206,830 yuan. Wow! Over 200,000 yuan for these sea cucumbers. Chu Shi's jaw dropped, a huge grin spreading across her face. Pinch me, bro, am I dreaming? That she couldn't believe that the giant sea cucumbers they'd scooped up on the beach in half an hour were worth so much. After their parents died, the insurance payout was only 300,000 yuan. Chu Yang was surprised too. He figured they'd make 70,000 or 80,000 yuan, tops. This was more than double that. Lost in thought, he absent-mindedly pinched Chu Shi's cheek. Ow! Quit it, bro, that hurts. Chu Shi rubbed her face, annoyed. Sorry, spacing out, Chu Yang said, reaching out to touch her again. Yang, I'll get my guys to load everything up. Cash or wire transfer? Bai Pengfei interrupted the odd sibling moment. Wire it to my account. Chu Yang didn't want to mess with cash. Plus, he'd have to deposit it anyway, and it wasn't safe keeping that much money at the house. Okay, then come into the city with me. I'll go to the bank and wire it straight over. Business is business, and they weren't that close. A deal this big required an in-person transaction, Jing chimed in, I'll go with you. Chu Yang glanced at the time. If they left now, they could probably hit the bank before it closed. All right, he agreed. Before leaving, he dropped Chu Shi off at Sun Qingjuan's place, asking Sun's wife to keep an eye on her overnight in case he didn't make it back. Sun Qingjun readily agreed. After making sure his wife was out of earshot, he pulled Chu Yang aside, a knowing look on his face. Yang, you struck gold again, didn't you? Those two guys taking you to the city tonight, they're taking you to the red light district, huh? Sun Qingjuan's obsession with Yidialong, the red light district, was like later generations' fixation on porn stars. Before Chu Yang had traveled back in time, there were even rich second-generation guys who flew across the ocean to seek out adult film stars in Japan, paying big bucks to create their own amateur films. If nothing else, they just wanted to collect them and fulfill a lifelong fantasy. Chu Yang considered taking Sun Qingjun sometime, but worried about leading him astray. If he wanted to get lucky every other day, it'd be the end of him. Can't say. You'll have to see for yourself if you ever get the chance. Chu Yang replied evasively, then said goodbye to Sun's wife and left. As he was leaving, he ran into Sun Xiang running back from outside, wielding a bamboo sword and practicing some wild sword moves. He'd cleared a 5-meter radius of weeds, and even the cabbages planted at the foot of the wall were damaged. Seeing Chu Yang, Sun Xiang froze, quickly hid the sword behind his back, and stared at him warily, like a cold-blooded swordsman. Don't worry, I'm not telling your dad. Chu Yang smiled, giving him a harmless look. But my sister might stay at your place tonight, so you gotta take good care of her. I'll bring you KFC later. Sun Xiang asked suspiciously, really? Really, cross my heart. I'm heading to the city. Deal? Chu Yang held out his hand. Sun Xiang hesitated, then extended his sword-free hand, trying to act all grown up, and shook hands with Chu Yang. Deal. Leaving Sun Qingjuan's place, Chu Yang headed straight for the docks, where Bai Pengfei and Zheng were waiting. Let's go, hop on. They boarded Zheng's fishing boat. Bai Pengfei had already arranged for someone to drive his boat back to the city. Once aboard, Zheng led them to the top deck. There were several lounge chairs where they could relax and enjoy the sea breeze. A cold refrigerator was stocked with ice, and Zheng had someone bring out a sliced watermelon. Chu Yang grabbed a piece and devoured it. Perfect for beating the summer heat. Awesome. While eating watermelon and enjoying the breeze, Bai Pengfei struck up a conversation. When Chu Yang mentioned renting a boat and heading out to sea, Bai Pengfei gave him a thumbs up. That's the way to do it. A 16-meter boat. You don't mess around, Yang. Looks like just scooping up what washes ashore ain't enough for you anymore. I wish you fair winds and following seas. Chapter 42. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This yacht is awesome, super stable and fast, nothing like Sun Qingjuan's rickety old boat. We got to the port at like 4 p.m., the three of us headed to the bank to handle the money transfer first. Zheng *** completed a 10-pay transaction of 106,760 renminbi to your agricultural bank account ending in 6666 at 4:33 p.m. on July 19, leaving a balance of 220,133 renminbi and 18 cents. Zheng *** completed a 10-pay transaction of 100,070 renminbi to your agricultural bank account ending in 6666 at 4:35 p.m. on July 19, leaving a balance of 322,083 renminbi and 18 cents, bam. 2 deposits and Chu Yang was suddenly flush with cash, over $40,000, that's serious money, enough for a down payment on a decent little house in a smaller city. Like they say, money talks. With that kind of cash in his pocket, Chu Yang felt like he could conquer the world. Yang, you get the money okay? Bai Pengfei asked. Back then, money transfers weren't instant. It took a little while for the funds to show up. Now, you're looking at maybe 10 minutes, maybe a few hours. Chu Yang got lucky. The system must have been running smooth, because the money landed quick. Got it. Your money and Uncle Zheng's both came through. Thanks a million, you guys. Dinner's on me tonight. Chu Yang said, waving his hand like a big shot. What are you talking about? We come to the city, you treat us. That's just wrong. Bai Pengfei said, hands on his hips, looking genuinely offended. Uncle Zheng nodded in agreement. After some back and forth, they decided Uncle Zheng would spring for dinner at the harbor fishing village right there at the pier. After that, Bai Pengfei would take over for after-dinner entertainment. Alright, I'll let you two spoil me rotten today. I'm just gonna sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. That evening, the three of them showed up at the harbor fishing village. It was still early, only a little after 5, but the place was already packed. You could hear glasses clinking from the private rooms upstairs. The restaurant was doing killer business, and being a seafood place, prices were high. They had to be raking in thousands every night. The economy was booming, and people were spending like crazy. Chu Yang wondered if he should think about getting into the restaurant game himself. After all, that's where a lot of the richest people made their start. Let's go, Yang, our private room's upstairs. Uncle Zheng called out from ahead. Coming. Chu Yang snapped out of it and hurried after him. They got to private room 666, and the waiter started bringing out the food right away. Clearly, they'd ordered in advance: steamed grouper, garlic oysters, baby lobsters, salt-baked crab. Uncle Zheng, you're way too kind. There's no way we can eat all this. It's a waste, Chu Yang said politely. Bai Pengfei grinned. Yang, you made Jing a ton of money, he owes you a good meal. Uncle Zheng laughed, pointing at him. Mr. Bai, you never stop talking, but keep eating. That the two of them hadn't really known each other until that day, even had a bidding war going, but now they were already cracking jokes. That's just how business guys roll, I guess. When the dishes were nearly all out, Uncle Zheng pulled a bottle of white liquor with a metal cap out of a box. Chu Yang glanced at it and smiled. 10-year-old Feitian Matai. Good stuff. Uncle Zheng looked at him, surprised. Yang knows about liquor, but what he really meant was, when did Chu Yang drink Matai? He didn't think Chu Yang's family had that kind of money. Even though Matai wasn't as crazy expensive as it would become, a bottle of Feitian still ran about $70 back then, $70 in 2007. My college roommate's family distributes Matai. He always told us about it, so we learned a thing or two. Chu Yang explained. Actually, this roommate was a friend from his past life. His family owned a wine business and were the main Matai distributors in Guangdong province. Chu Yang had learned a lot about liquor from him. Oh. Uncle Zheng still seemed a little puzzled. Wait a second. Yang, you're still in college. What school do you go to? Uncle Zheng genuinely hadn't known that. Nothing special, just a regular university. You're wondering why a college kid would come back home to be a fisherman, right? Chu Yang smiled, cutting him off at the pass. A college degree still meant something. It would be easier to get a job as a civil servant and come back to his hometown to be a township civil servant. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with being a fisherman. How many college grads in the city are making more than me, anyway? You got that right. Uncle Zheng nodded with a smile. Bai Pengfei jumped in, smirking. Uncle Zheng, I didn't go to college, but I went to a lot of college girls. I can hook you up tonight. The serious mood vanished instantly. You. Uncle Zheng shook his head, pointing at him. Never mind, I'm getting too old for that stuff. Bai Pengfei tried to rope Chu Yang in, looking at him. What do you think, Yang? Chu Yang said without missing a beat. I think Uncle Zheng still got it. Uncle Zheng, I didn't realize you were like this, Yang. Enough talk, let's fill these glasses. Alright, drink up. The meal was filled with food and drinks. The three of them drank about half the 6 bottles of Matai, averaging a little more than 2 pints of liquor each. Uncle Zheng was red in the face and clearly starting to feel it, but he wanted to keep going. Drink, drink, drink till you drop. Chu Yang quickly stopped him. No way, man. You keep drinking, and you'll be crawling under the table looking for me, Uncle Zheng. Chu Yang could still hold his own, but it wouldn't be cool to get the host trashed. Uncle Zheng wasn't completely out of it, and he listened to the advice. Seeing that the other two were about done, he didn't push it. They finished their drinks and called it a night. You guys hang out for a bit, I'm gonna hit the head. Uncle Zheng grabbed the chair and walked out, swaying slightly. Bai Pengfei tossed him a cigarette and grinned. Guarantee he's gonna be blowing chunks in the toilet. Thought he could hold his liquor better than Chu Yang. He was flushed, but his eyes were still sharp. Brother Bai can really put it away, Chu Yang said. Bai Pengfei looked pleased and replied, Yang, you're not bad either. We gotta drink together more often. They chatted for a bit, and when Bai Pengfei saw that Uncle Zheng wasn't back yet, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Chu Yang couldn't hear too well, but he caught snippets of technician, top talent, and private room. Sun Qingjun was right, tonight was a full-service experience. He was just wondering whether he wanted a curvy one, a skinny one, or both. Then the door to the private room swung open. Who was it that got my uncle drunk? Oh, it was you, Chu Yang. Kai-yu walked in, arms crossed, looking ticked off. Chu Yang waved his hand and pointed to the side, saying, Has nothing to do with me, lady. He got me drunk. I even tried to talk him out of it. You can't go around blaming innocent people. Kai-yu laughed at Chu Yang's nonsense, and suddenly the room was a whole lot brighter. Chapter 43. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yang, Miss Kai, you two know each other. Bai Pengfei was about to greet Kai-yu when he noticed she was already chatting with Chu Yang, and the way they were talking, they seemed pretty friendly. He felt a twinge of jealousy. Everyone around the harbor knew that Mr. Kai from Haigang Fishing Village had a beautiful daughter who was the apple of his eye, and plenty of young guys were vying for her attention. Bai Pengfei considered himself one of those young guys, so naturally, he was interested. 2. Oh, we met at dinner last time. Kai-yu helped me find the buyer for that manta ray. I see. Bai Pengfei said, glancing back and forth between them, clearly thinking something over. Chu Yang didn't care and turned to Kai-yu. Is Uncle Zheng doing okay? Not really. He threw up a few times. I had someone take him home to rest. Kai-yu glared at Chu Yang. You're such a pain. Uncle Zheng has a fatty liver. The doctor told him to lay off the booze. Technically, Chu Yang was a guest, and she knew Uncle Zheng loved to drink. She shouldn't be blaming him, but she couldn't help herself. As soon as she saw Chu Yang, she just felt like giving him a hard time. Chu Yang scratched his head. How was I supposed to know? Just watch it next time, he said with a sheepish grin. You guys done eating? Got anything else planned for tonight? Kai-yu looked at Bai Pengfei. Chu Yang secretly gave him a warning wink, hoping he wouldn't blurt out something about a health checkup. That would be super awkward. Luckily, Bai Pengfei wasn't clueless. Even after a good amount of wine, he was still thinking clearly. Yeah, we're thinking of hitting up a karaoke bar after dinner. Karaoke? Kai-yu turned to Chu Yang. Yep. Mr. Bai wants me to belt out a few tunes after all the drinking. Chu Yang answered smoothly, come on, he had nerves of steel. Kai-yu would have to try harder to catch him off guard. Then, can I come with you? Kai-yu didn't know why she said that, and her face flushed like she'd put on too much blush. Sure, I was worried singing with these two guys would be a total sausage fest. Chu Yang agreed right away. Bai Pengfei, hey, watch it. You're dissing me to my face, aren't you? And I was planning to give you the spotlight tonight. The three of them headed out and found a mass-market karaoke place and got a big room. Mass-market meant they charged by the hour. Back then, karaoke bars were still a novelty. These places were popular. Imagine it, a small room where you could hang out with your friends, have drinks, and let loose with some passionate singing, all without breaking the bank. In a time when entertainment options were pretty limited, what young person could resist that? Besides, since it was similar to the old dance halls, plenty of parents disapproved of karaoke, making it even more appealing to rebellious youth. Even though Kai-yu's family owned a business, she never had to entertain clients, so she didn't go to karaoke often. It was the first time she'd been with a guy she liked. Once they were in the room with the door closed, she got a little jittery and couldn't help edging closer to Chu Yang. Bai Pengfei, what's wrong? Do I look like some kind of creep? After a bit, the server came in pushing a cart. Here are the drinks and snacks you ordered. Bai Pengfei nodded, telling him to put it all on the table. Chu Yang sat down by the jukebox. What kind of songs do you like? He asked Caillou. I'll punch them in. Caillou was shy. I'm not a good singer. It's okay. What happens in here stays in here. I've had professional training, so I won't laugh no matter what. Even if you sound like a dying cow, I won't crack a smile. Chu Yang teased. You're the one who sounds like a dying cow. Caillou playfully punched Chu Yang with her small fist. Chu Yang clutched his chest, pretending to be hurt. Ouch, ouch, I think I've got a rib fracture. I can't move without $100 grand. You're such a goof. Caillou said, laughing and playfully scolding him. After some messing around, Chu Yang stood up. Can I play you a song called Sun Never Sets? This was a smash hit by Jolin Tsai, a huge pop star. Young people couldn't even show their faces in public if they didn't know at least a few lines. Okay. Caillou nodded shyly. Chu Yang punched in a few more popular songs, like Blue and White Porcelain and Farewell Poem. He was a pro with a microphone back in his old life, and these classic songs were a piece of cake. What about you, Bai? What kind of songs do you want to sing? I'll put them in for you. Bai Pengfei, you remembered me. It's a miracle. Nah, I can handle it. Bai Pengfei was clearly no newbie to this. Sitting at the song selection table and choosing tunes, Chu Yang took a peek and saw that he was picking out some hard songs like Love Until Death, and The Sea, the kinds of songs people chose to show off. Just then, the instrumental intro for Sun Never Set started, and Chu Yang perked up his ears, ready to enjoy the beautiful girls singing. 10 seconds later, Chu Yang clamped his mouth shut tight, his right hand clenched into a fist, eyes wide open, completely still. He couldn't move. Well, Caillou's voice was nice, light and sweet, and she had a cute, flirtatious way of talking, but her sense of rhythm was so perfectly off-key that it was like she was trying to avoid hitting the right note. Oh, that's annoying. Caillou realized she was off-key and threw the microphone onto the coffee table in frustration. Bang, star. Chu Yang finally lost it and burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. Caillou immediately tried to cover his mouth. Don't laugh. You said you wouldn't laugh at me. Jerk. Sorry, can't help it. I definitely won't laugh next time. There won't be a next time. Ah. Just then, they accidentally bumped the next song button. The next song on the screen was Adu's He Must Love You Very Much. Bai Pengfei silently picked up the microphone. I hid in the car, with champagne in my hand, that I wanted to give you a birthday surprise. You got closer and closer, and there were two voices, that I should be under the car, not in the car, seeing how sweet you are, that he must love you very much, even better than I did, that it only took a minute to break up. Chapter 44. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After ditching the mic, Caillou didn't say a word. Chu Yang swore up and down he wouldn't laugh again, promising he'd be a dog if he did. Caillou's nostrils flared, and a smile tugged at her lips. You're the dog, woof woof. Alright, if you don't want to sing, let's just drink. Chu Yang grabbed a glass and poured her some beer. Cheers. Caillou raised her glass and clinked it against his. Just so you know, I'm a lightweight. I'm only having this one. No sweat, do whatever you want. Chu Yang had no intention of pressuring her. He'd downed a whole pint of Mao Tai at dinner, and his mouth was parched, so he chugged his entire glass of beer in one go. Ah, that's seeing how happy he looked, Caillou asked, is booze really that good? My dad's the same way, Uncle Zheng too, and now you, they all act like it's the best thing ever. Then she stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. It's cold, kind of malty. Not as strong as they say. It's not bad. Chu Yang grinned. The beer at the karaoke bar was basically watered down. It was called beer, but it was more like a diuretic. Caillou's pink lips and tongue made his mouth feel even drier. noticing his gaze getting a little intense, Caillou's cheeks started to burn. "Yo, dude, your song's up," Bai Pengfei suddenly yelled into the microphone, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Chu Yang had skin like a rhino, but Caillou quickly turned away, embarrassed, that dog, he probably hoped to sabotage any potential relationship between them. Seeing she was flustered, Chu Yang turned his attention to Bai Pengfei and started trying to get him to drink. Caillou sat next to him, watching him drink and sing, but her eyes mostly stayed on Chu Yang. Bai Pengfei started with Auld Lang Syne, then launched into To Die for Love, all while throwing challenging looks at Chu Yang. He'd struck out with the girl, so he was gonna try and win some other way. Gotta hand it to him, Bai Pengfei could actually sing. Clear voice, good pitch, he could probably busk and make decent money, but Chu Yang wasn't about to admit defeat, especially in front of Caillou. "Alright, I'll give it a shot." Chu Yang cleared his throat. Still leaning on sleepless nights, staring at the stars, still hearing the violin, crying and playing. After finishing his version of Chen Leiji's Moonlight Serenade, Caillou was practically mesmerized. Bai Pengfei, dude, that's cheating. When did we agree that we were doing originals? Chu Yang, did you write that yourself? It's amazing, so beautiful. I think it's even better than the original. You're so talented. Caillou looked at Chu Yang with pure adoration, every cell in her body buzzing. It was like an electric shock. Chu Yang wasn't about to judge whether Chen Leiji's or Li Keqing's version of Moonlight Serenade was better, but he figured the more energetic, angsty version probably resonated more with younger people. Caillou was completely smitten. I wrote it back in college. If you like it, it's yours. Chu Yang said casually, what a dog, always acting so smooth. Bai Pengfei fumed inwardly, but he had to admit, the guy was talented. If he were a girl, he'd probably be hooked too. What girl could say no to a handsome and talented guy writing a song for her? Too bad Boss Kai's prize daughter might be snatched up. Sure enough, when Caillou heard Chu Yang's offer, she practically swooned. Really? She asked, her face flushed. So, you can only sing for me in the future, deal? Caillou took Chu Yang's arm and gave it a little shake. Sure. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes, basking in the warmth next to him. He finally understood why so many stars messed up. The fans were just too easy to get. As for Caillou, a few more sweet words tonight, and he could probably talk her into going back to the hotel, but that felt meaningless. Not refusing or taking the initiative was his golden rule. Man, I'm too righteous. Bai Pengfei. It's not how my brother's face was cultivated, it's painted skin that has become a spirit, right? After partying until 1 a.m., Caillou loosened up, and Chu Yang put on Broke But Happy for her. That song was a simple sing-along, perfect for someone like Caillou who wasn't exactly gifted in the singing department. After she finished, the KTV staff came in to announce that they were closing and asked if we needed to stay overnight. These entertainment venues are not allowed to operate between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. So those who often spend the night in bars and KTVs, please note that it is illegal to stay overnight. Of course, everyone knows the regulations. They're just doing it on the surface. Closing the door means it is closed, and it is even more exciting after closing the door. Bai Pengfei looked at Chu Yang, then glanced at Caillou, giving him the knowing look. Get rid of the girl, and the fun can really start, but Chu Yang shook his head. It's late, Bai. You can keep the party going. I'll borrow your car and take Kai home. You can drive. Learned it in college. Alright, be careful out there. Just leave the car at the restaurant. There weren't too many drunk driving checkpoints, so Bai Pengfei didn't worry. Grabbing the Cadillac keys, Chu Yang helped Caillou out of the booth. Watching them leave, Bai Pengfei muttered, you too. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He waved over the waiter and whispered something in his ear. A few minutes later, a group of girls in uniform filed in. Good evening, boss. The girls lined up and greeted him playfully. Bai Pengfei's face lit up. 13579, all stay. He waved his hand. Soon, Bai Pengfei forgot his troubles and dove headfirst into the night. Meanwhile, Chu Yang dropped Caillou off near her house. He didn't drive her all the way back to the harbor village, but to a gated community. Chu Yang stopped the car a few blocks from the entrance. "I'll leave you here, so you don't run into anyone you know." "Okay." Caillou reluctantly got out and waved goodbye. "Why don't you come up for a bit?" she blurted out. "Huh?" Chu Yang was surprised. Was she coming on to him? "Don't get the wrong idea. My parents are home. You've been drinking. You could come up and have some tea to sober up." Realizing how that sounded, Caillou quickly clarified. "No need. You should get home. It's late, and your parents will be worried." Chu Yang smiled. He'd love to see her place, but meet her parents? No thanks. Back at the pier, he found a cheap motel. After a shower and a cigarette, Chu Yang remembered his treasure chest had respawned. "Gotta claim it, congratulations. You've won the black iron treasure chest. The treasure chest location has been refreshed. Please go and claim it." A treasure chest out on the ocean? Figures. When you score in love, you strike out at the casino. Chapter 45. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Chu Yang was jolted awake by the neighbor's chickens. "Damn, can't you guys keep it down? Making all that noise so early." He grumbled, then got up and washed his face. After getting his 200 yuan deposit back from the front desk, Chu Yang made a call and sat in the lobby, killing time on his phone. About 15 minutes later, a horn blared urgently outside. Chu Yang got up and headed out. "Sleeping over here, huh? Come to the city for a little fun?" Zhang Hongtao asked, balancing the motorcycle with one foot and grinning. "Knock it off and let's get this over with," Chu Yang said, climbing onto the bike. Yesterday, he was driving a BMW, today, he was riding a Dayun. The dock was cold in the morning, and the wind was whipping around. It was chilly sitting on the back of the motorcycle. Chu Yang hugged himself, thinking he seriously needed to buy a car soon. They stopped at a steamed bun shop for a bowl of tofu pudding. It was sweet and smooth. After eating, they headed straight for the industrial park. This wasn't their first time at Yongqing shipyard, so the security guard waved them through. They found Manager Huang in his office, sipping tea. "Brother Chu, you're an early bird. Come on in, sit down." He greeted them with a smile, offering cigarettes and then pouring tea. After a cup, Chu Yang got down to business. "Manager Huang, the paperwork." "Relax, brother. Don't you trust me to handle things?" Manager Huang tapped the coffee table and pulled out a stack of official-looking documents, like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. "Here you go, fishing boat registration, fishery production license, fishing permit, sea permit, and your cruise certifications. All here. Let me see." Zhang Hongtao reached for them, but Manager Huang blocked him. He ignored Zhang Hongtao's confused look and smiled at Chu Yang. Chu Yang smiled back, pulled a pre-prepared envelope from his pocket, and placed it on the table. Manager Huang picked it up, felt its thickness through the envelope, then released his grip, smiling. "Brother Chu is generous." Zhang Hongtao realized he wasn't helping for free, and judging by the thickness of the envelope, he guessed it held 3,000 to 5,000 yuan, the equivalent of a month's hard work. What a rip-off, Zhang Hongtao thought to himself. He'd spent the last few days looking up fishery regulations, and figured the total cost of all those documents couldn't be more than 500 yuan. Chu Yang didn't think it was too expensive. This was how business was done. If you wanted speed and convenience, you had to pay for it. Plus, networking wasn't free. Manager Huang had to take maritime administration people out to dinner. That wasn't cheap. The man wasn't doing favors out of the goodness of his heart. Apologies to anyone participating in a free running plan in the future. Blame the greedy capitalists for my thinking. Back to the topic, Chu Yang checked the documents and put them away. Before leaving, he asked to see the progress on the boat's repairs. "No problem, Brother Chu. Don't worry, I'm personally overseeing it." With a payoff in hand so early, Manager Huang was in high spirits, his smile unwavering. Walking to the dock, Chu Yang saw the newly refurbished fishing boat. Even the faded hull number had been repainted, Minquanya 01688. He nodded, impressed with the speed of Yongqing shipyard. The external work is done. Once the waterproof paint dries, she's ready to launch. Our guys will also do a complete check of the internal machinery in the next couple days. Manager Huang rattled off the details like a pro. After inspecting the boat, the two said their goodbyes and left. Manager Huang saw them to the gate and called out before they left. "Oh, by the way, Brother Chu, the government still offers diesel subsidies to fishermen. Remember to keep your fishing logs and fuel receipts. Give me copies, and I'll process it for you. You can get a little something back." As he spoke, he glanced sideways at Zhang Hongtao. The look seemed to say, "Still think I'm ripping you off?" Chu Yang smiled and clasped his hands in thanks. "Oh, I appreciate that, Huang." See? Would Manager Huang have mentioned any of this without the envelope? Chu Yang believed that problems that could be solved with money were the easiest to fix. It was much harder to repay favors. He might not be rich now, but he would be. Leaving Yongqing shipyard, Chu Yang had Zhang Hongtao take him to KFC, bought 2 family-size buckets, and then headed back to the dock. He stuffed 100 yuan in Zhang Hongtao's pocket and told him to beat it. Chu Yang sat alone at the ferry dock, waiting for his boat. He'd arrived in style by yacht, but nobody saw him off on his return trip. The ferry to Falling Sun Island was infrequent. Chu Yang waited for 2 hours. He started to miss Sun Qingjuan's sampan. After all, a private boat was much more convenient than the ferry. "I need to buy my own yacht as soon as possible," Chu Yang thought, setting a small personal goal. Finally, at 3:30 in the afternoon, the ferry to Falling Sun Island arrived. After showing his ticket and boarding, Chu Yang found a good seat by the window, stretched his legs out, and was about to take a nap, but suddenly, a loud voice of surprise came from the front. "Chu Yang!" Chu Yang looked up and saw a woman in a blue dress waving at him, followed by a woman with dyed yellow hair. "Aunt Zhang!" Chu Yang frowned and tried to avoid eye contact, but Aunt Zhang clearly wasn't concerned with personal space. She grabbed the woman and pushed through the crowd to sit next to Chu Yang. "Oh, what a coincidence. We always run into each other in the city, don't we, Yang?" "Sure." Chu Yang replied flatly, holding his breath and shrinking away. He wondered how much garlic this old woman had eaten for lunch. Her breath was overpowering. If this were a cartoon, green fumes would be wafting from her mouth. "Let me introduce you. This is my niece, Zhang Zhuzhu. I've mentioned her before. Isn't she pretty?" Chu Yang took a closer look at the yellow-haired girl. To be honest, she wasn't ugly. She was about 5'3", and her features were proportionally decent. It was the thick yellow afro, raccoon eyes, green vest, and moccasins that reminded Chu Yang of a movie he would see a few years later called Breakup Buddies, the small-time thug played by Zhou Dongyu. If she were just a little less attractive, she'd be the spitting image of Zhang Zhuzhu. Zhang Zhuzhu was also checking Chu Yang out. While she wasn't thrilled with Chu Yang's country bumpkin clothes, she was definitely impressed by his face. He looked a little like Zhu Yuchen, and had a cool, handsome vibe. "Are you the college guy my aunt said wanted to chase after me?" She crossed her arms, her bright yellow bangs falling over one eye, radiating confidence. Cough, cough, cough. Chu Yang turned his head and coughed violently. That was the most terrifying sentence he'd ever heard in his life. Chapter 46. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't get your hopes up too high. I'm doing you a favor here. Zhang Zhuzhu figured Chu Yang was coughing because he was so thrilled to see her, and kept talking, feeling pretty good about things. "I'll give you a shot at dating me. If you can pass my test, then maybe we can talk marriage, but..." She paused for effect. "We need to get the gift squared away first. Our school tradition calls for a riot of color." Which meant 10,000 5-yuan bills, 1,100 yuan bills, and 666 50-yuan bills, adding up to 183,300 yuan. Back in 2007, even though 180,000 was a hefty sum, Zhang Zhuzhu had heard from her aunt that Chu Yang's family was about to have their house torn down for development and would get 200,000 yuan in compensation. Plus, he had a city job, so he had to have savings. Shelling out that little gift wouldn't be a problem. Chu Yang smiled. Back in his past life, he was a babe magnet, and all the women around him were good girls. That if he just nodded, they'd practically pay him to marry into a rich family, let alone the betrothal gift. He used to think the guys and girls online who were that stupid were just acting. He never thought he'd meet one in real life. That little betrothal gift wouldn't even come close to doing you justice. How about a betrothal gift of 888,000 yuan plus a big 3-bedroom apartment downtown, with your name on the deed? Sound good? Chu Yang asked, grinning. Really? Zhang Zhuzhu perked right up, suddenly finding Chu Yang's country bumpkin look way more appealing, but Aunt Zhang sensed something fishy. Chu Yang, you're not messing with us, are you? You guys started the messing around. Chu Yang grabbed the KFC bag at his feet and plopped down in a seat in the back. Zhang Zhuzhu finally realized Chu Yang was just yanking her chain. You jerk, are you kidding me? That she jumped to her feet, quick as lightning, ready to go give Chu Yang a piece of her mind. Aunt Zhang grabbed her arm. What do you think you're doing? Sit down. Forget it, Auntie. I'm gonna rip that little punk's head off. Zhang Zhuzhu rolled her eyes and cursed, showing off her stellar vocational schoolgirl manners. The other passengers were already giving the trashy woman the stink eye. Back then, people were simpler. Marrying off a daughter hadn't turned into selling her off yet. The betrothal gift was usually around 18,888 yuan, plus some gold jewelry. For Zhang Zhuzhu to demand 180,000 yuan right off the bat, 10 times the norm, was a joke. What kind of person is this? Dresses like she fell out of a dumpster and wants a dowry of 180,000 yuan. Exactly. You can tell she's from a bad family at first glance. Good thing this young man is smart. Whoever marries her is gonna be in for a world of trouble. Not only that, but there might be endless cheating, that even the ferry driver couldn't take it anymore. He slammed his hand on the rudder and yelled, "You wanna ride the boat or not? If you do, shut it. If not, don't bother the other passengers." Zhang Zhuzhu saw she was pissing everyone off, so she sat down awkwardly, glaring daggers at Chu Yang. When she saw Chu Yang close his eyes and ignore her, Zhang Zhuzhu turned her attention to Aunt Zhang and whined, "Aunt, it's all your fault. Didn't you say the guy was a smart college student, handsome and good-looking?" Aunt Zhang just rolled her eyes at her niece, not wanting to deal with her. Now she finally understood why the girl couldn't get hitched. People who are full of themselves but can't back it up, with zero brains, were like that. So, you're saying he's not handsome? Zhang Zhuzhu sneaked another look, then curled her eyes and pursed her lips. Handsome, I guess. And isn't he a college student? Yeah. I guess. His parents are both dead, and his family is about to get rich from the demolition. Aren't those conditions good enough? Okay. As she spoke, Zhang Zhuzhu started to regret it, pulling at her yellow hair in frustration. Now what am I gonna do? He doesn't like me. Aunt Zhang glared at her with disappointment. I told you to be a lady when we got here. Be polite. He's a college student, not like your trashy friends. Leave your bad habits at home. And the betrothal gift, why didn't you tell me in advance? More than 180,000, you can't even say it out loud. Is it inlaid with gold or diamonds? Zhang Zhuzhu shrank back. Didn't my dad tell me to ask for more money when he went out, so my brother could get married? Aunt Zhang almost choked. So your family is trying to take advantage of us? Your brother is getting married. He has parents, too. Why should they get involved? Zhang Zhuzhu, Aunt, my brother's parents are your brother's wife. Aunt Zhang. What am I going to do? I really like him. Zhang Zhuzhu was so filled with regret that she wanted to slap herself. Aunt Zhang, ugh, it can't be helped. You're my niece, and I'm your aunt. So, don't worry, I'll figure something out. The aunt and niece huddled together, whispering. Chu Yang was too lazy to pay them any attention. As long as they didn't bother him, he didn't care. An hour later, the ferry pulled into Falling Sun Island. Chu Yang grabbed the KFC bag and practically ran off the boat. Aunt Zhang and Zhang Zhuzhu called out to him twice, but he acted like someone farted behind him and walked even faster. Arriving at Sun Qingjuan's house, Chu Yang pushed open the gate and went right in. Sun Xiang was reciting his lessons in the yard, head held high, eyes closed, shaking his head. A day's plan is in the morning, a year's plan is in spring. A day's plan is in the morning, a year's plan is in spring. Yep, repeater mode engaged. A day's plan is eating. Chu Yang interrupted with a chuckle. Sun Xiang's eyes snapped open, and when he saw the KFC bag in Chu Yang's hand, tears practically welled up in his eyes. Call someone, and I'll give it to you. Chu Yang teased. He expected the kid to be proud and hesitate for a bit, but the kid wasn't embarrassed at all. He saw the food and immediately started yelling. Brother Chu, brother Yang, brother Chu Yang, you're my real brother. After shouting, he rushed over and rubbed his hands together. Ha ha ha, okay, here you go. Just for this kid's face, Chu Yang figured even if he didn't study in the future, he wouldn't be a total failure. He just wasn't sure if he'd grow up to be like Sun Qingjun or his real mother. Oh, Yang, why did you buy him something so expensive? Sun Qingjun heard the commotion and came out of the house. Seeing his mischievous son gnawing on a fried chicken drumstick, he said a little awkwardly. It's okay, the kid likes it. I just happened to be in the city, so I brought some back with me. By the way, where's Chushi? She's eating breakfast inside. Have you eaten? Yep. Chu Yang went into the main room and saw Chushi holding a big bowl of porridge with 2 eggs on top. Brother, you're back. Have you eaten? Aunt's millet porridge is delicious. Chushi held the bowl and ate the porridge with minced meat and pickled cabbage, cheeks bulging. I already ate. I came to pick you up. Finish eating first. I'll talk to Uncle Qingjun on the phone. Chu Yang helped his sister wipe the rice grains off her face, popped them into her mouth, and smiled. Okay. Yang, what's up? Sun Qingjun asked. We got the boat's certificates. Zhang and I went to the shipyard. The boat is almost completely maintained and will be ready to go next Monday. I wanted to check on the crew. How's that coming? Hearing Chu Yang's words, Sun Qingjun was happy at first, then worried. He scratched his head, a little embarrassed, and said. Yang, I owe you an apology. Sun Qingjun didn't think recruiting crew members would be hard, so he promised Chu Yang. But he didn't expect things to go sideways. A couple of days ago, he went to find De Yen, De Biao, and De Lei, the best fishermen. They were practically in agreement, but then they all backed out, and that wasn't all. He talked to other fishermen in the village, but when they heard it was Chu Yang's boat, they shook their heads like crazy. Even the ones who were willing to join the boat were greedy, demanding a base salary of 5,000 yuan plus a share of the catch. How was that supposed to work? Sun Qingjun would rather stay ashore than be a sucker. So nobody wants to work on the boat. Chu Yang stroked his chin. He'd practically figured that. Yang, how about I go talk to the party secretary? Sun Qingjun blurted out. He knew the only person in the village with enough sway to stop those fishermen from making money was the old party secretary Baoguo, especially since Chu Yang had pissed him off again. It would be weird if he didn't do something behind the scenes. Forget it, Uncle Jun. Let me say this up front. I don't get along with Baoguo. Sooner or later, I'm gonna run him out of office. If you go begging him for me, then we're not friends anymore. Chu Yang stared at Sun Qingjun and said seriously, he was just a village party secretary, but he was really calling the shots. Master Chu had never been so angry. Hey, Yang, you. Sun Qingjun started to say something, but seeing Chu Yang's firm expression, he had to nod. Okay, I won't go. What about the crew? Should we recruit from other villages? Chu Yang shook his head. No. Not enough time, and I don't trust people I don't know. The 4 of us can manage. Anyway, a 16-meter boat can barely hold 4 people. 4. Sun Qingjun was confused. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Uncle Jun. I found a cook for our boat. Lin Zijin from our village," Chu Yang explained. Sun Qingjun was confused at first, then it hit him. That, jinx. He was about to say that jinx, but when he saw Chu Yang's face tighten, he quickly clammed up. "Uncle Jun, what's wrong with Lin Zijin? Why do the villagers hate her so much?" Chu Yang was genuinely curious. She was just a girl. How could everyone in the village avoid her like the plague? He'd asked Chu Shi, but what did the little kid know? She just babbled without saying anything clear. "That's a long story. I'll tell you sometime." Sun Qingjun sighed. Chu Yang saw he didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't press him. "Yang, are you really going to take Lin Zijin on board?" Sun Qingjun frowned and asked again. Chu Yang knew what was worrying him. He patted his shoulder and grinned. "Don't be like that, Uncle Jun. You're not superstitious, are you? Besides, what are you afraid of with me around? With my luck, we'll be pulling in nets full of fish." Sun Qingjun forced a smile. "I hope so." Chapter 47. You are listening at novelfull.audio. For the next couple of days, Chu Yang stayed put in the village. He opened up 2 treasure chests during that time, both made of black iron, one he found out at sea, and the other in the mangroves. Inside the mangrove chest, he found 5 huge blue crabs. They'd be worth $1,000 or $2 if he sold them, but Chu Yang wasn't about to bother. He didn't need the chump change, especially since he was about to head out to sea. Instead, he decided to treat himself. He had Chu Shi steam them all, sending one to Grandpa Sun's family and another to Sun Qingjuan's. The 2 siblings devoured the remaining 3, drooling all the while. Even though Chu Yang had struck out at the casino, his love life was looking up. Ever since their KTV night, Caillou had been calling him every evening, and the calls would stretch on for 2 hours. Back then, cell phones charged you both ways, and Chu Yang had an out-of-state number, so the roaming fees were insane. He barely made it to that night before his phone shut off. Then, half an hour later, he got a text about a recharge. "Dear customer, you paid 10,000 yuan at 21:21 on July 20th, 2007, and the remaining balance is 9,998.98 yuan. Holy cow! Chu Yang was floored. This was the kind of sugar mama support he'd only dreamed of in his past life. Talk about a rush. July 22nd, Sunday, Chu Yang was up bright and early, washed, and headed out. When he got to the village dock, Sun Qingjun was already waiting in the sampan. A woman was on the boat too, head down, staring blankly at the sea. As Chu Yang approached, she looked up and gave a faint smile. "Hey Uncle Jun, Zijin, we're here. Let's roll." Chu Yang yawned wide, hopping onto the boat. Sun Qingjun cranked the big Z key, firing up the engine. "Uncle Jun, you drive. I'm gonna grab some shut-eye." He'd been up half the night chatting with Caillou, not hitting the hay until 2 a.m. Only 3 hours of sleep. Good thing he was young, he could handle it. He'd catch up on the boat. Seeing Chu Yang's tired face, Sun Qingjun figured he hadn't slept well and waved him off to rest. "Grab your jacket. Don't catch a cold out on the water." "Got it." Eyes squinting, Chu Yang swayed gently with the boat and quickly drifted off. In his dream, he was battling a goblin. The goblin was a master of disguise, morphing into Caillou, He Shijuan, and Lin Zijin, but when the goblin turned into Zhang Zhuzhu and lunged at him, Chu Yang woke up with a jolt. "Oh, geez." He gasped for air. "That was rough." "Nightmare?" "You were laughing like a horned dog, then you figured out it was a pig halfway through." Sun Qingjun chuckled, enjoying his misery. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and ignored him. Didn't he see there was a girl present? He glanced at Lin Zijin out of the corner of his eye and saw she was still staring blankly at the sea, so he relaxed. "Where are we?" Chu Yang asked, still groggy. 10 minutes from the docks. At the fishing docks, Zhang Hongtao was parked in his beat-up Wuling, puffing on a cigarette when his cell rang. "Hey, Yang, Pier 6 in Area B, right? I'm on my way." He took one last drag, flicked the butt, and watched it arc perfectly into the sea. vroom vroom vroom. Zhang Hongtao gunned the engine, and the Wuling roared toward the docks, spewing black exhaust. Whoa, Zhang, this is the luxury car you were talking about? Some luxury. Sun Qingjun circled the car, checking it out, and making a TSK, TSK, TSK sound. Hey, I really was gonna roll up in a fancy ride. BMWs are like, don't even think about touching me, but a buddy needed a car today. Next time you're definitely riding in a don't touch me Beamer. Zhang Hongtao defended himself, cheeks flushed. Chu Yang chuckled and patted them both. Alright, pile in. We've got too much to buy today. A Wuling is way better than a BMW for this. Yang's got the right idea. Zhang Hongtao grinned, throwing a look at Sun Qingjun. The three piled in, and Chu Yang introduced Lin Zijin to Zhang Hongtao. Sister Lin, right? Good to meet you. We're all in this together now. Name's Zhang Hongtao, call me Tao. Zhang Hongtao gripped the wheel with one hand and stuck the other out, flashing what he thought was a killer smile. Lin Zijin. Just focus on driving, okay? Chu Yang swatted Zhang Hongtao's hand down and helped him out of an awkward moment. Ahem, right, driving. Zhang Hongtao grumbled, thinking Lin Mimi was a bit frosty, but his mouth was like a faucet he couldn't shut off, and he felt like he'd shrivel up if he didn't use it. Lin Zijin ignored him, and he turned to chat with the other two. So, Jun and Yang, what are we loading up on today? Sun Qingjun was an old salt who'd been fishing for over a decade. He'd even shipped out on ocean-going vessels. He knew everything there was to know about boats. He ticked off items on his fingers. Trawl nets, cast nets, sea fishing rods, long lines, harpoons, spear guns, traps. Plus rain gear, gloves, life jackets, waterproof jackets for the crew. Zhang Hongtao's jaw dropped. That's a ton of stuff. Sun Qingjun glanced at him. You think being a fisherman is a walk in the park? Zhang Hongtao muttered something under his breath. Soon enough, they arrived at the fishing gear wholesale market. Sun Qingjun was a regular here. Under his guidance, they bought everything they needed for the boats. Chu Yang didn't just stand around. Every time they bought something, he jotted it down in a notebook, including the price, brand, how it was used, etc., and then made a list. He might hand off the buying to someone else down the road, but he needed to know the ropes, a little markup. Fine. But he wasn't about to get played for a fool. Boss, those 3 sea fishing rods and spear guns you bought are in your car. Got it. After hitting up another store, Chu Yang settled the bill. He'd already dropped close to 20 grand that morning, just on fishing equipment. No wonder so many folks go out a few times, catch nothing, and end up broke. And keep in mind that this ain't a one-time purchase. A lot of this stuff is consumable, like trawl nets. They run hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and the good ones cost tens of thousands. If one gets snagged on a reef, the whole trip could be a bust. Then there's diesel, fresh water, food, and labor. All those expenses add up and put a serious hurt on the average fisherman's family. Think we've got everything? Anything else you can think of? Sun Qingjun asked after checking the load in the car. Chu Yang shrugged. He was new to this. What did he know? He'd just have to figure out what they were missing once they hit the water and buy it next time. Zhang Hongtao was even clueless than Chu Yang, so he was no help. Then Lin Zijin spoke up, surprising Chu Yang. Let's get some net rope. Net rope? What's that for? Zhang Hongtao asked, all wide-eyed. Sun Qingjun ignored him, turning to Lin Zijin. You know how to mend nets? Yeah, been doing it at home since I was 5. Lin Zijin added, worried they wouldn't believe her. I used to mend nets for Yudatu in Shirtang. Shirtang was a big island not far from Zhuiri Island. Yudatu was a boat captain there, and Sun Qingjun knew him. Hearing her say that, it probably was true. Okay, then let's grab some. Chu Yang agreed. He knew mending nets was a skill, and it cost a pretty penny to hire someone. Sun Qingjun could do it, but he couldn't do everything, right? For Chu Yang, the budding business owner, a torn net they couldn't fix could mean losing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fish. Lin Zijin had really caught him off guard. Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was already past noon when we left the fishing gear warehouse. The sun was beating down, and the van didn't have AC, so the heat was brutal. Man, Lao Zhang, sorry about this junker without air conditioning, Sun Qingjun griped. Zhang Hongtao flipped him off. He was roasting too, but he wasn't about to admit it. Screw you, be grateful you got a ride. Always gotta complain. Chu Yang just fanned herself with her skirt, too tired to listen to them bicker. When they finally arrived, she practically jumped out of the van. Chu Yang, you made it. Kai-yu had been waiting outside the restaurant. She rushed over when she saw Chu Yang. It's sweltering out here. Come on in and cool off. I got the AC blasting in the VIP room upstairs, number 666. She didn't stop talking as she shoved an ice-cold Coke into Chu Yang's hand. Zhang Hongtao elbowed Sun Qingjun, winking. Yang's got game. Snagged the cute owner after just a couple days apart, huh? Sun Qingjun caught his drift and squinted back. Mind your business. That's Yang's charm at work. If you're so brave, go after her yourself and see if Miss Kai doesn't shut you down fast. Zhang Hongtao scowled. Hey. I'm a handsome dude, okay? I'm practically Huadu's answer to Aaron Kwok. Sun Qingjun rolled his eyes. Yeah, right. You're delusional if you think that. Alright, let's go already. You gonna stand around and sweat? Chu Yang asked, oblivious to the silent conversation between the two. Coming. Sun Qingjun answered, then shot Zhang Hongtao a look that said, moron, before heading into the restaurant. Yeah, you're the moron, Zhang Hongtao muttered, hurrying to catch up. When they got to the VIP room and opened the door, all three of them gasped. Sweet relief. Lin Zijin was already sitting down and took advantage of no one noticing to quietly pull off the underwear that was stuck to her body. A cool breeze came in and made her shiver. Miss Kai, come over here. Let me introduce you to Lin Zijin. She's a friend, my business partner, and she's also our ship's cook. Chu Yang had noticed Kai-yu's eyes glued to Lin Zijin, so he took the initiative. Kai-yu immediately offered her hand. So you're Miss Lin. It's nice to meet you. Chu Yang and I are good friends, so your friends are my friends. If you ever need anything at the dock, just ask. Lin Zijin didn't hesitate this time, shaking Kai-yu's hand gently. Okay. She said simply before letting go and sitting down without another word. The room got quiet. Chu Yang thought, what is happening? Chu Yang glanced at Zhang and Sun and realized they were watching, enjoying the drama. Unreliable wingmen, Chu Yang thought and spoke aloud. Miss Kai, when do you think we'll eat? I'm starving. Kai-yu snapped out of it and smiled. Right away. I'll go tell the kitchen. She smiled at Chu Yang before heading out. Kai-yu had said right away, and right away it was. In less than 5 minutes, the table was piled with amazing dishes, along with a case of ice-cold beer. Chu Yang suggested that she eat with them. I don't know. Nonsense. This meal's a celebration for our ship setting sail early. Don't you want to wish us luck, Miss Kai? Of course. Fine, I'm buying today. Consider it a bon voyage gift. Kai-yu was just being polite, but after Chu Yang insisted, she gave in. Alright, cheers. Everyone's glasses clinked, even Lin Zijin joined in. After a couple of rounds, Kai-yu left the room on an errand. Chu Yang didn't push her to stay. It was lunchtime, and he didn't want to interfere with her business. Besides, being too eager wasn't his style. It was like fishing. You had to reel them in and let them out or you risk losing them. With Kai-yu gone, everyone relaxed, and the three guys started knocking back beers. Lin Zijin sat quietly, enjoying the food. She only raised her glass when Chu Yang made eye contact. Chu Yang also noticed how neatly she ate. She carefully gnawed off the meat attached to the bones, even chewing and swallowing small, crispy bones. Chu Yang knew exactly what that meant because she had eaten the same way during their first few days together. He wouldn't bother with empty platitudes like there's enough food. Words were cheap. He'd rather help her make money. Once she had money, food wouldn't be a worry, and her habits would change naturally. After they finished eating, they got ready to leave. Before they left, Caillou pulled Chu Yang aside, looking a little sad. "You're leaving already?" "Yep, I bought a truckload of stuff this morning, and I need to get it all on the boat this afternoon. Otherwise, we won't be able to set sail tomorrow," Chu Yang explained. "Oh man." Caillou pouted, stomping her foot, accidentally squashing an ant. Chu Yang knew he couldn't just let them out. It was time to pull them in a little. He frowned, gently taking Caillou's hands and holding them in his own. "Yo-yo, it's not that I don't want to stay." He paused and sighed. "You know I'm just a fisherman with humble beginnings. You're amazing. If I want to be with you, I need to work hard. I don't care about that. I just want." Caillou said quickly. Chu Yang put a finger to her lips. "But I do. Don't worry. Once I'm out there and make enough money, I'll talk to your parents properly about us, okay?" "Okay." Caillou nodded enthusiastically, suddenly realizing she was acting too bold and shuffling her feet shyly. "Oh, be quiet, why are you talking to me about this suddenly?" After a few more words of reassurance, Chu Yang waved goodbye. They piled into the van and headed straight for the industrial park. When they arrived at the shipyard, there was no time to admire the gleaming fishing boat, completely renovated and ready to go. They started hauling stuff on board non-stop. They worked until 6 in the evening, finally getting everything stowed away. Safety was paramount for fishing boats headed out to sea. Things that could be easily damaged, like crab pots and fishing nets, needed to be secured in their designated spots. Otherwise, in rough seas, people and gear could easily be tossed overboard. Out of the 4 of them, only Sun Qingjun was a seasoned fisherman, directing Chu Yang and Zhang Hongtao on how to properly secure the nets and gear. Lin Zijin was in charge of stowing the freshwater, food supplies, cooking equipment, clothes, and other necessities. At 7 in the evening, Sun Qingjun gave the boat's mechanical systems a final inspection. Once he was satisfied, they officially began the trial run. "Let's go." Chu Yang stood on the bow and barked into the walkie-talkie. A second later, the boat let out a deep, resonant blast. Wu. The Minquanya 01688 left a foamy trail behind as it vanished into the night. Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Falling Sun Island, Nyoto Ferry. It was already 9 p.m., and the old women in the fishing village had tucked their kids into bed and were now nudging their husbands towards, well, activities they both enjoyed. Xiong de Kuei's wife, Gui Xiang, was no exception. She'd spent the evening on the reef picking a basket of oysters for him. As soon as their 7-year-old son was out of the way, they went into the bedroom, turned off the lights, and things got intimate. But not even 5 minutes later, the lights flicked back on. Aunt Xiong stormed out to the bathroom, muttering a blue streak under her breath. A few minutes later, Xiong de Kuei followed, looking bummed and chewing on a flower. What could he do? 30's like a furnace, 40's a fire, or so they say, and Aunt Xiong was pushing 40, 39 this year, but practically 40. She was in her prime, and he, a village accountant with a taste for the good life, just couldn't keep up. "Gui Xiang, I'm gonna head to the beach for some air," Xiong de Kuei announced, burping up a potent fishy smell. "I don't care where you go, you good for nothing." He didn't dare argue back. He knew better than to rile her up. A few more baskets of oysters and his life wouldn't be worth living. While she was still in the bathroom, Xiong de Kuei bolted. Once outside, he headed south along the beach. Wonder if the pretty widow's showering now. The thought of He Shijuan's face and figure made his mouth water. Those oysters must have had some effect. He might be worn out at home, but he still had plenty of energy elsewhere. Fueled by his dirty thoughts, he picked up his pace, but before he could get far, a light beam from the dock nearly blinded him. "What the hell? Who's shining a flashlight in my face in the middle of the night?" Xiong de Kuei shielded his eyes, tearing up. When his vision cleared, he realized it wasn't a flashlight, but the lights of a ship. Strange, where'd a ship come from at this hour? Xiong de Kuei crept closer, keeping his footsteps quiet, he saw it was a large, iron-hulled vessel, at least 50 feet long. A dozen or so people stood on the dock next to it, gathered around a table laden with chicken, duck, and fruit. Looked like some kind of ceremony was going on. Goddess Mazu, these children, Chu Yang and Qing Jun, are good people. Please bless them. Grant them a safe voyage and a bountiful return. Grandma's son knelt on a cushion, holding incense, praying earnestly, for cushions were placed on either side of her. Chu Yang, Sun Qing Jun, Zhang Hongtao, and Lin Zijin knelt on those, present and accounted for. Chu Yang also held incense, silently thinking. Goddess Mazu, I'm not asking for money, just a safe trip. When I get back, I'll donate red cloth and set off 100,000 firecrackers for you. Sorry for bothering you tonight. He hadn't believed in this stuff before, but after the whole rebirth thing and the system, who knew? Maybe gods were real, whether they were or not, it couldn't hurt to be respectful. With the Mazu prayer complete, the simple departure ceremony was done. Chu Yang led the others back on board and waved goodbye to the well-wishers. Grandpa's son, Grandma's son, Shao Hai, He Jie, Aunt Sun Xiang, Xiaoxi, see you later. Have a good trip, kids. Smooth sailing, Chu Yang. De Jun, take care of yourself and the others. Chu Yang, bring me back something tasty. Brother, come back soon. Carrying the thoughts and blessings of family and friends, the Minquanya 01688 sliced through the waves and headed out into the open sea. Woohoo! Not far from the boat, Zhang Hongtao suddenly yelled on the deck. I'm king of the world. He'd shouted the classic line from Titanic, but he didn't seem to realize he was just a supporting character. Supporting characters don't get to shout the protagonist's lines. Sure enough, Sun Qingjuan's voice crackled over the intercom, dripping with sarcasm. You're more like a psycho. Now hurry up and clean the net cabin and check the bait. Don't spread it all over the deck, or you'll be cleaning it up. Screw you, you wouldn't understand, Zhang Hongtao grumbled, flipping off the cockpit before dutifully getting to work. After instructing Zhang Hongtao, Sun Qingjun continued showing Chu Yang the ropes of driving the boat. Yang, don't sweat it. Driving a boat is different than a car. As long as you stay awake, accidents are pretty rare. He explained the controls twice and pointed out all the equipment on the console. Besides the rudder and throttle, there were high-frequency radios, search and rescue radar transponders, fishing wireless phones, and more. Chu Yang was surprised to see a nautical chart navigator. Since the ship was so new, in the future, cheap navigation systems would be standard thanks to the rise of domestic Beidou, but right now, it was just GPS, the global positioning system, and the fees were outrageous. Most fishing boats couldn't afford it, and even if they could, it wasn't necessarily safe. What if someone shut it off? Out on the open sea, you'd be totally helpless. Look up the Galaxy cargo ship incident for more on that, but be warned, you might need blood pressure medicine. But with a nautical chart navigator, at least they wouldn't be sailing blind. Got it, Chu Yang said, listening carefully and giving Sun Qingjun a thumbs up. Then he took the helm. It felt a little awkward at first, but after a few minutes, he got the hang of it. The actual operation wasn't hard, practically idiot-proof. The tricky part was the theory and experience, reading charts, finding fish, watching the weather. Of course, if they ran into really bad weather, he was toast. Alright, you take it from here. Holler on the intercom if you need anything. I'm going to help out below, Sun Qingjun said. Chu Yang waved him off. Go ahead. The Minquanya 01688 sliced through the waves, sailed smoothly, anyway. Before long, they arrived at the first treasure chest refresh point on the system map. Now that he was alone in the cockpit, he didn't have to worry about anything. Time to open it up. Black iron treasure chest opened. Reward, randomly refreshed marine economic creatures, common. Capture time limit, 30 minutes. A band of light, a mile long and 100 yards wide, reflected on the sea not far away. Chu Yang grinned. It was a school of fish. Even if it was just a common type, the sheer volume could mean a big haul. Chu Yang throttled down, turned the boat toward the light band, and shouted into the intercom. Everybody get ready. I'm gonna try and cast the net. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cast the net here. Sun Qingjun sounded surprised. Normally, they'd head out to sea a bit before dropping the net with a 16-meter fishing boat. They were practically still on the continental shelf, close to where Chu Yang had caught that monster grouper last time. The odds of a good haul were definitely lower this close to shore. Yep, let's give it a shot. I've got a feeling about this spot. Chu Yang didn't elaborate. Sun Qingjun hesitated, then nodded. All right. After all, Chu Yang was the one calling the shots. He figured he'd let this first net play out, then explain the finer points of choosing a spot later. Hope this doesn't backfire. Sun Qingjun thought. Zhang Hongtao, on the other hand, was pumped. His first time out on a real fishing trip. He'd been whining about being bored, but the second he heard they were dropping the net, he perked right up. Come on, let's go, let's go. I'm ready. He rubbed his hands together, practically bouncing. Sun Qingjun ignored him and started prepping. He stacked the nets in Z shape on the stern deck, connected the ends with rope, and hitched the other end of the ropes to the hydraulic winch. Yang, take it slow. I'm getting ready to lower the net. Zhang, stand on the other side, and don't cross the net as it goes in, or it'll drag you straight into the drink. Under Sun Qingjun's direction, the newbie crew began their first lesson in net casting. Splash, the end of the net hit the water. The boat's momentum slowly pulled the rest of the net after it. Once submerged, the net unfurled, creating a huge, teardrop shape, covering the water for hundreds of feet in every direction. Okay, Yang, pick up the pace a bit now, Sun Qingjun called out. Chu Yang pushed the throttle forward. The diesel engine roared to life. Boom, the fishing boat dragged the net along the light. Sun Qingjun kept his eyes glued to the water, occasionally glancing at the ropes. Experienced fishermen could often tell if they had something in the net just by looking at those lines. The shape of the net and the tension in the ropes were different when they were dragging an empty net versus one loaded with fish. Of course, it wasn't an exact science. Ocean currents, water depth, density, speed and even the wind could throw things off. For a truly accurate read, they'd need sonar equipment to find the fish. Hey, looks like we might have something after all. It wasn't long before Sun Qingjun's eyes lit up. About 20 minutes later, the boat reached the end of the designated area. Uncle June, let's bring it in, Chu Yang said over the radio. Sounds good. Sun Qingjun didn't argue this time. Even though the drag was on the short side, it was supposed to be a test run. He was also curious to see if Chu Yang's lucky streak would continue. Fishermen were generally a superstitious bunch, and they believed in luck. If your luck was bad, even the best fisherman with a lifetime of experience would come up empty. That was a big reason Sun Qingjun was willing to team up with Chu Yang. He'd never seen anyone with such good fortune. Rare seafood seemed to appear for him all the time, like finding spare change on the street. He flipped the switch, and the hydraulic winch started hauling in the net. The engine strained, the cable tightened, and the 100-foot net slowly emerged from the water. The trapped fish panicked, trying to swim the other way, bunching up at the bottom of the net. When the last few feet of net came over the railing, they finally saw what was in the bag. Holy crap, amberjack! Looking at the haul, Sun Qingjun couldn't help but shout in excitement. Zhang Hongtao was just as thrilled, even though he didn't recognize the green backs, white bellies, and yellow stripes of the fish. They were huge. Even if they were carp, they'd still be worth a fortune. Uncle Qingjun, what's an amberjack? Never heard of it. Chu Yang heard the commotion and hurried out of the cabin. Amberjack is top-shelf stuff. Some people call it tuna. Either way, we're in luck. Sun Qingjun explained as he hurried to untie the net. He grabbed the noose at the bottom and yanked it open. The fish poured out, hitting the deck with a loud thwack. Without Sun Qingjun having to ask, everyone started grabbing fish and tossing them into baskets. Holy cow, this one must be 70 pounds. Awesome! Zhang Hongtao wrapped his arms around a half-meter amberjack, as thick as a pig. Old Sun, how much do you think these will go for? He asked eagerly. Sun Qingjun didn't stop working. Seafood prices jump around every day, so I can't say for sure. But around this time last year, amberjack was going for about $30 a pound. $30. This fish has got to be worth $1,000. Zhang Hongtao got even more excited, staring at the fish like a crazy person. He looked like he wanted to make out with it. Chu Yang was thrilled. It was the first net he'd ever pulled up. If it really was $30 a pound, and they had 1,000 pounds of fish, they'd be looking at over 10 grand. This wasn't just catching fish, it was catching money. Quit goofing around, let's drop another net while they're still biting, Sun Qingjun said, urging them on. Of course, he was excited, they were making money. It was crazy that they'd snagged a school of fish so close to shore. The odds were about the same as landing a top-shelf date on a Friday night. He was completely convinced. Chu Yang was born for this. No problem. Fueled by the prospect of money, Zhang Hongtao was a machine. He filled a basket in minutes, stashed the fish in the cold storage, and ran back for more. 1,000 pounds of fish sounded like a lot, but it was only about 30 or 40 amberjack, plus some smaller fish. With everyone working together, they had it all cleaned up in about 15 minutes. Sun Qingjun led Zhang Hongtao to restack the net. They needed to hurry up and get another one in the water. Chu Yang didn't say a word to stop them. The system boost might have ended, but nobody else knew that the first net had been such a score that any fisherman would want to cast again in the same spot. If Chu Yang suddenly quit, it would look suspicious. Soon, the second net went down, dragged along, and came back up, but without the system's help, the haul wasn't so great. There were only a dozen or so fish in the net, none bigger than the size of your hand, and a bunch of plastic trash. Crap. Zhang Hongtao kicked the deck. Chu Yang was a bit bummed, too. The difference was too extreme. Sun Qingjun, who was used to this sort of thing, patted them on the shoulder. Don't sweat it. The first net set us up for the day. If every net was like that, nobody would work a normal job. We'd all be fishermen. You're right. Chu Yang laughed, shaking off the disappointment. He had to change his mindset. He was already luckier than most fishermen thanks to the system. Gotta be grateful for what you have. Alright, let's pack it up and try another spot. Chu Yang focused on the location of the second treasure chest, grateful. Maybe not, he wasn't going home until the boat was full.